Well, another day and another championship managerial special is here. And this one is a direct consequence of the one we released yesterday, because in that video, we were talking about Russell Martin, who had left Swansea City to go to Southampton. Well, today, because of that prolonged process of getting that deal over the line, Swansea City were prepared. They bring in Michael Duff from Barnsley as their new head coach following their agonising League One playoff final defeat last year. And the task for Michael Duff will be to improve on Swansea's championship season last year, where they missed out on the playoffs by 3 points in the end in one of the tightest championship seasons in years. So today we're going to talk about the former man at Swansea, what to expect from the new man at the club, and I'm sure there will be a tiny bit of overlap with yesterday's video, but we'll try and keep that to a bare minimum. Craig's still on holiday, so he's missing the chaos this week, but before we go and get into the appointment of Michael Duff, let's go and talk about the former man, Russell Martin, because as we sort of alluded to yesterday, this has been one of the worst kept secrets for a number of weeks. We knew he was going to Southampton. We knew it was just a case of compensation and Swansea waiting to get their replacement. Well, now they have, as we know. But let's talk about Russell Martin's time in charge at Swansea and some of the strengths or weaknesses that are perhaps going to be inherited by Michael Duff's side, because we all know, and it became a thing of both credit and ridicule at times to other championship fans, that Russell Martin's approach to football was play out and play at all costs. Playing out from the back led to some brilliant goals. It also led to some pretty ludicrous moments defensively. And as we mentioned when talking about Russell Martin yesterday, only 4 sides in a championship last season had a worse defensive record than Swansea City, and all of those finished in the bottom 5. It does mean that Swansea was scoring goals going forward. However, you could argue as a neutral that the football was both progressive or not very entertaining to watch, depending on what side of the fence you're on. Swansea played an incredibly short passing game. Of course, we've all seen the stats, over 1,000 more completed passes than any other team in the championship last year. And in the first 2/3 of the pitch, in the top 2, the automatic promotion places for number of passes completed in a championship. However, that didn't lead to a top 6 finish, and it didn't lead to a great defensive record, and that is something Swansea have got to be careful of. I did have this debate a little bit yesterday as well, albeit Swansea lost key players after Steve Cooper left and Russell Martin came in. He did technically finish worse the 2 seasons after. They went from a 4th place finish and back-to-back playoffs under Cooper to a bottom half finish in Martin's first year and a top half one in the second year. But as I mentioned, that doesn't really tell the whole story, because Russell Martin had to rebuild a side to an extent where key players had gone in addition to a very good manager. And as a head coach, he did implement a playing style that was easy on the eye to many, garnered the support of the support base at Swansea City, and despite a few murmurings and bits of discontent off the pitch, he did manage to keep Swansea stable. Of course, we mentioned the fact that in the end of the January transfer window this year, they had the drama with Carlin Grant and not getting that extra goal scorer over the line. And that might be even more of a concern this summer, with Joel Pirro widely rumoured to be on his way out. I'd be surprised if there weren't a few departures, or 1 or 2, that Russell Martin maybe tried to take to Southampton with him. But overall, it is the nucleus of a pretty good squad at Swansea City. And the man that's going to be inheriting that after Russell Martin's time in charge is Michael Duff, who is a manager that has proven himself to be very good in the EFL in his time so far. Another fairly young manager that plays football that's quite easy on the eye. And another man who's rebuilt a side that lost a lot of key players in the recent seasons. So it's certainly an appointment that you can understand and that makes sense. Michael Duff, of course, is the former Cheltenham and Barnsley manager. Not sure the Barnsley fans are too happy after the way he spoke towards the end of last season. But he did do a very good job there. A 55% win rate in 1 year. Of course, Barnsley did come down from the championship just before he joined, brought some much needed stability after a couple of managerial changes in quick succession. Barnsley not really settling after Valerian Ismail left for West Brom. And he also lost a lot of players to Luton Town, which I'm aware for Barnsley fans, we do nick a few every summer. But stealing Carlton Morris and Corley Woodrow, 2 key goal scorers in that team, was never going to make things easy. And to be fair, after a sluggish start, Barnsley flew up the league and were one of the form teams for the 2/3 of the season towards the end. And of course, were just a moment away from a penalty shootout that may well have sent them to the championship again. But a good squad to work with, probably one of the favourites for the top 2 next year, given the mess that some of the relegated clubs are in. And it does maybe make it a bit more surprising that Michael Duff has made this change. However, a chance to come up a division to the Championship, to a club that often give their managers and coaches time, I can certainly understand the lure of it. But of course, the big question is he's going to stick around? Because we've seen before at both Cheltenham, he left for a fellow League One club with Barnsley. He's left for Swansea City after a year. He's not a manager that sticks around when a better opportunity comes. But you could argue there's not much loyalty in football either way now. If we talk about his time at Cheltenham, which was probably his biggest success so far, a wonderful effort to bring them up from League Two. They then immediately lost their skipper and long throw specialist all the way down to the National League to Wrexham. Of course, we know plenty about that story. But he still kept them up really comfortably and did a very good job in the process. It was a job where he built a club over 2 or 3 years, got manager of the season in their promotion in 2021, and did a really good job in his first year in League One, which obviously convinced Barnsley to give him the job. Michael Duff has been appointed as head coach though, and it's a 3-year deal he'll be signing at the Swansea.com stadium. And he's got a proven track record, which is something that is mentioned a number of times in the statement. There is no doubt that he is one of the highest regarded coaches in the EFL, but it's not just about that, is it? There's plenty of good young coaches. The question is, how does he fit into the Swansea style? Because for the last few seasons, since that relegation, whether it be Graham Potter, whether it be Steve Cooper, whether it be Russell Martin, playing a certain style of football is something that has become, well, infamous with Swansea City. We even saw it when watching Premier League football under the likes of Rodgers and Laudrup. It's something that Swansea certainly have done for the last decade at least. And Michael Duff will fit into that. Much like Russell Martin's Swansea last year, Barnsley had the joint worst defensive record of the top 5 in League One last season. However, they did score over 80 goals, and despite not having an out-and-out goal scorer at times, were a real threat going forward from all areas. That's something that Swansea are going to need to be. If Pirro does leave, they're going to have to spread the goals around a bit more. But can they go and reignite a deal for a striker or for some creative players from League One? That's something Michael Duff will know well. Of course, the difference with this one compared to the last 2 manager specials we've done in Enzo Maresca and Russell Martin is that this one is a head coach rather than a manager. So we have got to assume from that there will potentially be less involvement in recruitment, or maybe more of a joint say rather than the final say going to Michael Duff. But I'm pretty sure that the philosophy of the manager and the club is something that's pretty well aligned at the minute. And Swansea, to be fair to them, as we mentioned from the last few names, have generally got their recent managerial appointments right. So you probably don't give them any risk of finishing in a relegation zone next year. That's the first tick box out the way. Looking towards the top though, and what happened last season, of course, Swansea finished just 3 points away from the playoffs in the end. That wretched run after the disappointment at the end of the January window, added to by some defensive crisis and injuries at times, led to a really poor spell in which Swansea actually sort of fell down the table towards March. But after that, a really strong finish to the year, one of the best runs in the Championship for the last 2 months, put them just 3 points away. And well, certainly made Russell Martin look good to certain clubs, didn't it? What we've got to see this season though, is whether they can compete in what is widely regarded to be one of the toughest championships in many years. You've got 3 massive clubs coming up, albeit one of them has now surprisingly let a manager go, and 3 clubs coming down who probably all, whether it's rightly or wrongly, will expect to run away with a top 2 position, albeit all of them will have had managerial changes, 2 of them already confirmed. So the question's going to be whether Swansea can go to that next level. If you look at the squad on paper, you'd say it's a good squad without being a great or particularly deep one from a neutral Championship point of view. But there's definitely some stardust in there. There's definitely a lot of technical quality to meet Michael Duff's style. And if we're looking towards the rest of the summer now, there are plenty of players available that may be able to improve things. He's got a good reputation as a young coach, so will he be able to attract loan players? We've seen before that he's able to do that with Barnsley in League One and with Cheltenham prior as well. And unlike some of the other changes we've seen recently at other clubs, it's not going to be a big change in style, because we mentioned with Southampton yesterday, they've gone in permanent appointments from Nathan Jones playing very direct football and a style at Luton that was successful but very different to watch, to Russell Martin, which is the polar opposite. I think fans that have seen Luton and Swansea last year will attest to that. What we've got here though is 2 more styles that is much more aligned. There's definitely a bit more of a consistent vision across this club. And I think that can only help Swansea going into next year. I'm not going to sit on the fence though. I will give you my prediction, especially now I'm a neutral watching the Championship with my club Luton going up. I do think it's going to be tough for Swansea to break into the top 6 because no matter how badly or well they do this season, I think the 3 relegated clubs are going to be there or thereabouts. They're probably not going to fall away in the way that Watford or Norwich did last season. Those 2, among many others, will improve, and you have to look at the likes of West Brom and Middlesbrough, who, if they'd started the season with the managers they finished with last year and hadn't had those awful starts under their predecessors, they probably would have been right up there too. Add to that some really strong sides in the playoffs last year. Coventry, Sunderland both look really solid and are adding to the squad quite well. It's going to be a very tough top 6 to break into. The good news is I think Swansea will have a solid and consistent season. I think they'll be pretty good to watch under Michael Duff. And I think they will make progress by looking maybe not too different in terms of style of play, but there's a balance between Russell Martin's all-out play out at all cost and Michael Duff's, which is, well, let's play good football, let's play out, but let's also know our time. So we might see a few less of those ridiculous goals. He is a manager that likes to have a little bit more of a physical side than Russell Martin did. We all know about the first season with Carl Norton playing in the middle of a back 3. So that's probably going to be the little bit of difference we see. But I can't see Swansea breaking into the top 6. I think it will be another mid-table finish. I think it will be enjoyable to watch. But if Michael Duff can impress and doesn't run away after one season, it is one of those rare occasions where I can see a club sticking with a manager for his contracts. It's something that is very rare in a Championship. We mention it every time. The lifespan of a manager is less than a season by a long way now. And Michael Duff, if he doesn't go away, which he has done from 2 other clubs, could be the man to see out his contract. However, he's a manager who hasn't been sacked yet in his career, and there's a first for everything, isn't there? Hopefully we're wrong with that one. Hopefully Swansea can go and have a good season. It doesn't really matter what I think though, does it? What do you think if you're a Swansea fan? Are you excited by the appointment? The reaction seems to be fairly positive to it. Great that it's been done quickly as well to allow pre-season to be focused on without all the background noise. Do you think the right players are going to be added and that Michael Duff will be given a chance to succeed? Or is there the other side to you that's a bit more apprehensive? Because I know Russell Martin was fairly popular at the Swansea City Stadium. Let us know your thoughts on that. And of course, if you're a fan of another club in a Championship, do you think this appointment is going to make Swansea better? Or is it going to see them tumbling down the table? Let us know all of that in the comments. And of course, if you've not been here before, we will be back for weekly score predictions from the Championship as soon as the season gets underway. Pre-season predictions to come soon as well. Will Swansea's transfer work make me change my mind? We'll find out in the weeks to come. But score predictions on the way every match day. Make sure you don't miss them by subscribing and turning that notification bell on. If you did enjoy our little episode reacting to Michael Duff joining Swansea, then please do put a thumbs up on it. There's loads of other content in the eye above. There's a few more manager specials to come yet. Who's going to be in at Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds? We'll find out the answers very soon. Thank you for watching this one. Your support is always appreciated. You can find any other links you might need in the description below. And I'll see you next time for another manager special.